That's good. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is share my screen. So for those who joined a little bit late, I'm Jill Hilliard, this is Isabella, and we're also joined by Jane, who is a bit of a maestro in this area also. So let's see what we can do. Share wise, this one. Oh, crikey.
Should be able to be in presenter mode.
Yeah.
When we do this.
Okay, can everyone see a PowerPoint first slide?
Just put thumbs up if you
Thumbs up.
Yeah, I can see. Thanks.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Okay. So, thank you very much, everyone, for joining. In case you're in the wrong Zoom, just to be clear, we are covering off the general election tellers briefing. And as I said, there's me and there's Isabella and there's also Jane. And for those of you who've got a pen in your hand already, can you please write down Jane's number, because you are going to need that.
And it was shared with all of you as well today via WhatsApp. So
Yeah.
you should already have saved it in advance.
Okay. But just to be sure. Okay. Thank you. So Jane is going to be your contact on the day if you have any queries. That's why you need the number. Okay. So what we're going to cover here, we've said hello, greetings. We're going to have a quick refresh on why we think Jess can win and the role that you guys are going to play in order to help get Jess over the line. To give you a little bit of context, there are two activities that happen on polling day and they complement each other. So we're going to talk very briefly, just so that you understand, about knocking up and the role that you play in facilitating the knocking up. And then we're also going to talk about what happens after polling day. So for those of you who've been to any of the campaign briefings before, this is the trajectory of the Lib Dems' progress across the Chichester constituency since 2015, when we had 9% of the vote. And then we got 11% in 2017, and we got 23% with Kate O'Kelly in 2019, with a massive 58% for Ms. Keegan. And then in the district elections in May 2023, if we look at only the wards that participate in Chichester constituency, that's different from the district wards, then we got 45% of the vote and Keegan got 27, or the Tories got 27 to be specific. Since the 1st of June 2023, we have spoken to 17,000 voters in the Chichester constituency on the doorstep. And that represents 22% of all voters in the constituency. That's a huge canvassing number. And on that massive canvassing number, our current projection is 43% for Jess and 40% for Keegan. Kind of moves around depending upon what the MRP polls say, but this is our data from having spoken to voters on the doorsteps. So it looks like we have a pretty good chance. But actually, if you translate that 3 percentage point difference to actual numbers, we are actually only 1,617 votes, according to our data, slightly ahead. And then there was a Telegraph poll published at the weekend, which put us slightly behind. So it really is in the balance. So everyone's effort and contribution is going to be, it's really going to make a difference. So it is now about how do we get the Lib Dem votes that we've identified across the line. That is the critical thing. So there's 3 things this week that are happening. We've had the monster delivery over the weekend. Thank you very much for any of you who helped with that. The last final weekend literature. And then we've got this 2-pronged effort over polling day. The first is the telling operation. The second is the knock-up operation. They work hand in hand. And they are designed to get Jess over the line. As long as we get 1,618 votes, we will win for Jess. So the monster delivery, I'm sure you've all seen it. We had a tabloid, we had a leaflet for people who might be considering voting Labour or Green, and then we also had a letter that was targeted at young voters. So those have all gone out over this weekend, over the action day, particularly yesterday. So we're going to just talk about the two operations on polling day, knocking up and telling, which, as I said, are wholly complementary. So on polling day, actually the night before, we will have a definitive list of all of the Lib Dem voters, and we've identified those by knocking on the door and canvassing. So we know where all of the people who've said they are going to vote Lib Dem, we know where they live, and we know they should be voting at each polling station. So from this list, we'll have already taken out all the people who voted using a postal vote. So on the eve of the polling day, we'll know where everyone is. So our task on polling day is to make sure that as many people as possible who've said they'll vote for Jess do actually cast their vote for Jess. So that's where the knocking up operation happens. There'll be people out, literally knocking on doors, reminding and encouraging people to get out and vote. And that's the knocking up operation. Your contribution as tellers is to make the knocking up operation much more efficient and effective. And basically what you'll be doing is, because you're outside the polling stations, you'll be checking off voters as they come to the station to vote, so that we can reduce the number of people we then need to go and knock up. Okay, I'm going to talk a bit more about how that works in a second. So where do we do telling? We do it outside the polling station. We never go into the polling station. We only do it outside. You can sit outside, take a deck chair, or not a deck chair, a beach chair, a folding chair, or you can stand. And your job is to take the voters' ballot numbers or their details if that's not available. And I'll talk about that in a second. So at its most valuable, telling reduces the canvassing lists. And also there are quite a number of volunteers who don't want to actually help on polling day in the knocking up arena, but what they want to do is still continue to make a contribution to the campaign. When we place people outside polling stations, we will already have evaluated which polling stations within which wards have a disproportionately important impact on the campaign. So we'll have worked out from the electoral roll, minus the postal voters, how many people we think will use a polling station. These are numbers from May last year, because we haven't got numbers from this year, so don't take this literally, but we do have an understanding of where we should focus our effort if we've got limited availability of people to staff the polling stations. So in this example, it would be within Chichester West at the polling station at St Wilfrid's Church Hall. Okay, and if we're really short of volunteers, then we wouldn't bother with the Sunray building, for example, for Chichester West. Now, new for 2024, because of voter ID introduction, we're having to change the way in which we tell for that telling effort to be maximally effective. And the good news is that Winchester trialled this first, and we all went to Winchester in May to help them. So we know exactly how it works, and it has a material impact on the number of voters we can switch off from the list that the knocker-uppers need to go to. So we know it works. We've trialled it ourselves. We're rolling it out with some Chichester enhancements based on our learning at Winchester. So this is, whilst it's new, if you've done telling before, it might feel slightly different. It is definitely qualified, and we're not just making it up. Okay.
We've seen it in action.
We have seen it in action, exactly. Okay. So there's a plan for each ward, and in each ward, there'll be individuals, you guys, assigned to specific slots across the day. And I know that Isabella's been liaising with you to put your names in the frame. That's a blank one, just as an example. And there'll be a teller pack, and in a second, I'll walk you through what's in that. For each polling station that we are putting a person outside to collect ballot numbers and voters' information. And Isabella will talk to you at the end about what the arrangements are about getting the teller pack to each of you. But in essence, the idea is that the first teller gets the pack, and then they, almost like a baton pass, they give the teller pack to the next person who's relieving them at each polling station. And then the last teller on the schedule for each polling station will then be responsible for getting the teller pack back to the ward leader. But again, Isabella's going to talk about that at the end. Okay. So what's in the teller's pack? Here's the picture. Obviously, we have a lovely yellow clipboard with a yellow pen and a Lib Dem badge. And there are also some forms in there. On the right-hand side, we have a new telling sheet for 2024, which reflects that Winchester model. And I'll talk about that in a second. On the left-hand side, and I think Isabella's already sent this to you, there's also a hard copy printout of Chichester District Council's obligations for tellers. And that's definitely something, if you haven't read it already, please read it when you are actually picking up the teller pack. There's another piece of paper that sits behind the Chichester District one, which walks you through all of the steps that we need you to go through in order to get the information to the data team. And again, I think Isabella sent that today. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. There's also information on there about how to submit the data, which is slightly different from how we've done it before, and the all-important badge and the pen and the clipboard. And all of these things together, each time you finish your shift, everything needs to be passed on to the person who's relieving you, including the badge. Don't walk away with the badge, because there is an obligation to identify the teller with a party badge. Okay, so I'm going to go through each of those in detail. And we've got, just to reassure you, there is an opportunity to ask questions at the end. So we'll take the questions at the end if you just want to scribble things down, if you want clarification on anything as we go through. So here's the forms, the new telling sheets, and they're slightly different between the left-hand side and the right-hand side, because on the left-hand side, that's because only one polling district is being served by the polling station. And on the right-hand side, some polling stations, not just these ones, will have more than one code being serviced by the polling station. And you can see that if I look at the one on the left-hand side, it's in two parts. There's a space for polling numbers, and underneath there's also a different grid. There's a space for postcode, house name or number, and whether the person was male or female. And I'm going to talk about how and when to utilize which parts of the form in a second. Okay. So just to highlight some of the key points from the Chichester District Council tellers obligations, and if there's anybody joining us from Bursted or Pagham, because Bursted and Pagham are in the Chichester constituency, the Chichester District Council issues these rules. They probably exactly the same at Arran District, but because Chichester's in charge, they've issued this one. So the most important things to highlight are that we're only allowed one teller per political party at a polling station at any one time, and outside only. If you happen to see that the other parties who are also present at the polling station, they may or may not be there. If you see that the other political parties have more than one person, and that's going on for any period of time, or the nature of their interaction is interfering with voters making progress towards the polling station, then please contact Jane Scotland on the number that we shared earlier. It's very important that you don't take matters into your own hands. Don't challenge them on their rule breaking, but call Jane and Jane will give you some advice and instruction on what to do based on the issue that you've seen. Whoever the first teller is that arrives at each polling station, introduce yourself to the returning officer at that polling station and just get their agreement of where would be acceptable to them for you to stand or sit on your chair outside the polling station. It's a top tip at this point also to see if you can get an in-principle agreement from the returning officer that should the teller need to use the toilet, that they are able to use the toilet that is inside, invariably, the polling station. Don't just assume that you can use it just because you know there is one. Technically, you're not allowed to cross the threshold. So if you do need to get the approval of the returning officer before you do so. And then the first teller, having gotten those instructions and agreement sorted with the returning officer, that's part of the information that you then pass on to whoever's coming to relieve you at the next shift. The item number 4 on CDC's instructions, we're going to talk about in a lot more detail, but I just wanted to highlight the obligations that they have pulled out, which is that tellers can ask a voter for their information only once, and that you have no right to that information. So don't push it and don't suggest to the voter that you do have that right. It is very much up to their discretion. As I mentioned earlier, if you're a Lib Dem teller, you must be identified with the Lib Dem badge. So it's really important if you're handing over to someone that you get the badge as well as the pack and the pen. And that if you are receiving from someone who's handing over to you, make sure they don't leave before they've given you the badge. You're absolutely not allowed to give voters any election material, even if they ask for it. Okay. And if you park your car at the polling station or anywhere close to it, you're not allowed to display any election material, any posters, for example, because you could be influencing the voter. Okay. So those are the highlights of the rules. I would really encourage you to read through all of them, because Kate and I have had to give a written confirmation that we have shared that information with all of our tellers. So if for some reason it doesn't all go smoothly, the person who is ultimately legally responsible is Kate. And answering to Kate is a bit of a thing. Okay, so I'm going to move on to talk about the data that we need you to collect. In order to remove a voter from the canvassing lists, we need to know what their polling station is. Presumably it's the one that they've turned up to, but also their polling district and their voting register number. And that is printed on the polling card. And you can see on the slide here where to find the electoral register number and to know that you've got the right number and the right polling district number. So WEW2 in this example is the polling district, and 620 is the number that's assigned to that voter. Okay. So once you've ascertained that that is the number, and we'll talk about how to get that number in a second, but once you've ascertained that that is the number, then you put it on the form as indicated on this slide. So for those of you who are in polling stations that are serving more than one polling district, it goes without saying that you need to be very careful that the number 620 goes into the correct polling district, WEW2, and you don't by mistake put it into WERN. Because if you did, voter number 620 in WERN will be recorded as having voted, and that's obviously incorrect. Okay. It's best practice to ask the voter if they can show you their polling card, and then you can see the number for yourself. If they're not happy with that, then you can just ask them if they'd be comfortable just reading it out to you, and then you can use the same information in the same way. Okay? If they don't want to give you the polling number, you can ask for an address, as in the house name or number and the postcode. And you can also note the gender of the individual, because that's another way that we can look somebody up on the electoral roll. And this is what's different versus anyone who's ever done telling before. So the ability to ask for this information and the necessity of asking for this information and the way in which to record it is new. Because what we've been finding, and they found this at Winchester, is that since the voter ID rules have changed, a lot of people don't bother to take their polling card with them to the polling station. As long as they have their photo ID, that's actually all they need to vote. So if they don't have the polling card with them, we can ask them for this, but remember, we can only ask once. Additionally, if you speak to them when they're coming out of the polling station, or they've already given you the information before they go in, and they say to you on the way out, well, I voted for your lot, or you just got a vote from me, or something like that, then you can mark Lib Dem or Con or Labour, whatever. If they tell you how they voted, you could just add it in this way on the form. You cannot ask them how they voted. They have to volunteer it to you. Okay? So here is a completed example. And I'll talk about the nature of the information that's on the form in a second. But what I wanted to do at this point was, once you've got a completed form, how do you get the information to Richard Cobden House, to the data team, so that they can update the canvas lists and the knock-up task list is reduced. So once you've filled out the entry on the teller sheet, once you keep going until you either fill up the sheet or every half hour, and at minimum every hour, when you finish the shift, you take a photo of the sheet as it looks on the left-hand side, filled in. And you send that photo to the WhatsApp, to the number via WhatsApp that's at the bottom of the sheet there. Alternatively, you might want to write this email address down, please, because we've added this as the alternative way of getting the sheet to the data team, is to send it by email to simon.scotland@gmail.com. That will then provide you two ways of getting the data to the control team. And a plea from those who did this at the elections last year is, can you please make sure that the photo has the whole of the sheet in it? And in particular, your name, because then if the data team do have a question because they can't read the writing or they're not quite sure what it says, then they know who to contact. Jane's going to tell us that the email address is wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we cover that at the end? Okay. I should have checked that. So once the data team receive a nice picture of your telling sheet, then they will input the information that you've collected manually into the database. And as soon as that's done, the voters will get removed from the canvas lists. And that's lots of people less that the team who are doing knocking up have to contend with. So I'm going to talk through the completion of the form in the next slide. Oh, sorry, there's one last thing. Once you've sent your photo, can you please just make sure you score through all the numbers and information which are contained in that photo, and then put the sheet to the back of the teller sheets in the teller pack in the clipboard, and then start a fresh sheet. Okay. If you are, can you nibble it in? If you are starting a new shift, then it's better to start a new piece of paper than to complete someone else's. And the reason for that is we need to know who it is that's actually collecting the information so that we can get back to them and ask for clarification if necessary. Okay? Come in? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, it's all go here. Okay. So on this worked example, you'll see that in the first box, under where it says polling numbers, hi, Nicola. If you can't get the information, either the polling number or the postcode and house name or number information, then please just put an X in the box. And the reason for that is even if there's an X in the box, then we're getting an impression and an understanding of how many people are coming to that polling station. So we can have a view on how busy it looks. Now, if you can have a look, everybody, at the form on the left-hand side, you might spot some things there which you think, well, if I was the data team at Richard Cobden House, I might not really understand what I'm supposed to do with that. So just take a moment to have a quick look, and then we'll walk through how some of them might not be as helpful as they could be. Everyone had a chance for a look? Okay. So these are the dodgy ones. Okay. So let's look first of all. So this teller has written the third person, Tory. That's not going to help anyone at Richard Cobden House. So that's not particularly helpful. And then you can also see that where it says 124-091, you're never going to get a number like that. The last three numbers will always be digits, but the first three numbers at least will always be a reference to a polling station. So it's not particularly helpful. It's not particularly helpful because now the data team don't know if the number they should be looking at is 124 or 091. So in this part of the form, the only thing that you're recording is the voter number, because the polling district number has already been printed on the form. In this example, it's SDS1. Okay. So then the one that says SDSN 721, that voter is actually at the wrong polling station. So only voters who have a polling card that starts with SDS1 should be using this polling station. It's not your job to tell them that they're at the wrong polling station, but it is your job to realize that that number is wrong for a data entry at this polling station. So you'll probably see them in a couple of minutes coming back out of the polling station, having been told they're in the wrong place. But you just need to cross that SDSN 721 number off because they haven't actually voted at this particular polling station. So then you can see the next one that's ringed is looked like reform. That's as helpful as saying Tory. So let's not do that. And then you can see on the left-hand side, number 665, and a little stroke saying his wife. Okay, so again, that's not particularly helpful. We need, if indeed 665 is the husband, although can't be absolutely sure, then we actually need the wife's polling number in order to be able to give useful information to the guys. The next one along is PO27HH. That is useful information, but only if it's utilised in the bottom half of the form under the postcode section. And then the last questionable one in the top half of the form is 98 question mark. Okay, so if I'm one of the guys at Richard Cobden House and I'm inputting data, I really don't know whether you have in fact talked to voter number 98 or not. So if you're not sure, it's better not to submit information like that. Okay. And then the one which you're probably less familiar with is the bottom half of the form. So as I mentioned, if they haven't got the polling card with them, or they don't want to give you the number, read out the number, then you can still ask them, would they be comfortable to share their postcode and the house name or number that they live at. So in this example, PO27LX, very helpful, particularly as we know that the person in that postcode lives at Old Mill Barnes, and that individual is female. There are only 2 registered voters at that address. One is male and one is female. Therefore, we know that that female has now voted at this polling station. In the next example, we have both male and female ringed, and plural, Fletchers. Now, if the data team have the wherewithal, they'll look up at Fletchers, and if there's both a male and a female at that postcode and that house name, then they can record both the male and the female. The next one down is less helpful. Man with red hat who lives at PO27U. Now, PO27U is not a complete postcode. So for our postcodes, there'll always be a number and 2 letters as the last 3 digits in a postcode. So at this point, man with red hat who lives a postcode that doesn't exist and who looks like not sure whether it's a male or a female, that information is of no use at all to the guys at the data hub. I'm sure none of you are going to mark your form in this way now that you've seen how this person did it. Fred was not particularly helpful. Okay. So I just want to run through with you how that interaction with the voter at the polling station looks like. So these are some examples of what a typical dialogue might be that takes place, bearing in mind that if you go back and look at the CDC regulations and also read the document which Isabella emailed you earlier today, to reiterate, it's not for chat. This is a very transactional conversation. You're asking a very simple question, and when you get a simple answer, you are courteous, but this is not for having a wee, catch up on the local gossip. Although many of you will be familiar with the people who are coming to the polling station that is probably closest to where you live also. So here's some examples. And this is absolutely classic. So the Lib Dem teller says, hello, please may I ask you for your polling card number? A very typical response is, and why do you need that? So your response is very benefit oriented. So what's in it for them? And your response is just so that we won't send someone to your house later to remind you to come to the polling station to vote. So they've seen a benefit to them of giving you the information. And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, okay, and they'll give you the information. Another typical one, particularly given voter ID now used to facilitate voting, is you'll say, hello, please may I ask you for your polling card number? And the answer is, I don't have it with me. So that's the point at which you can now ask and say, that's okay, just your postcode and street number or house name is fine. And then they might give it to you then. Alternatively, you may also ask, can I please have your polling card number? And they say, I'm not giving it to you. There may be a teller from the Conservative Party also present at the polling station, and the individual may pointedly and very loudly say, but I'm going to give it to them, or they give the information to the Tory teller. Just be polite and say thank you. If they've made it very clear that they had no intention that you should hear the number and have the information, then please don't write it down, even although you've heard it audibly, because you need to be respectful that their wishes were that you would not get that information. We'll talk in a second about how you might share information that the Tory teller got or you got in event of either one of you missing an individual who didn't make it, who said nothing about you not having it. This is also quite a frequent one. Hello, please may I ask you for your polling card number? I don't have it with me. I just have my photo ID. I brought my student union card. Will that be acceptable? That is absolutely nothing to do with us. And so you have to say, I can't advise you on that, but if you ask inside, they should be able to help you. The absolutely last thing we need is for the returning officer to complain to us, to Jane or to Kate, that a teller has instructed a voter that their inadequate voter ID should be fine, because then you've raised an expectation that they can use that. Even regardless of the conversation about the voter ID, they by definition won't have their polling card with them. You can still go on to ask them for their postcode, street number or house name, so that you can record that they have come to the polling station. Okay. On the 2-page Chichester Lib Dem guidance on telling form, which Isabella sent you earlier, all of the information that's here is at the bottom of the 2nd page, but I wanted just to draw your attention to it. It's perfectly possible that whoever is supposed to be taking over from you appears to be either late or has just not arrived. If you get to a point where, I don't know, 5 minutes in to overtime, there's still no sign of that individual, then please ring Jane Scotland and she will chase them up. Please don't leave the polling station without making an arrangement with Jane as to what to do with the teller pack, even if your person relieving you has not turned up. Okay. If you get to the end of your teller session and you're thinking, do you know what, this campaigning lark is a bit fun, I could do a bit more to help Jess get elected today, then please ring Reese, campaign organizer, on that number. The number's at the bottom of the 2nd page of the Chichester Lib Dems paper, and Reese will gladly tell you where to go next and what to do. And if you're the last person who is providing cover for telling at a polling station, then the arrangement, tentatively as a blanket rule, is that Isabel will make arrangements with you to get the teller pack back to the ward leader who's actually managing the knocker-uppers. But if there's no way of doing that or getting in touch with them to solidify that arrangement, then again, Jane is the person to ring to make an agreement about where to transfer the teller pack. Okay? So this was the one which got sent by email earlier today, and it is new and updated for 2024. So even if you've done telling before, please do take the time to read through this, because if nothing else, the contact details and the process for getting information to the data guys has changed. So I'm going to unmute you, if I can, sorry, before I get on to questions, I just want to share one piece of information with you, and it's this date for your diary. So Jess has asked me on her behalf to invite all of you on this call to a party on the evening of Friday the 19th of July at Chichester Yacht Club. We hope it will be a celebration, but if nothing else, it will be a big thank you for everyone's efforts to try and get her over the line. So please do write that in your diary. Please do consider yourself invited. I'm sure it'll be a great night. It'll be a fabulous night if she wins, but it will be a big thank you night regardless. Okay, so I'm going to take this off the screen now, and then I'm going to put everybody back up and unmute. And then if anyone's got any questions, then
I have a question.
Is everybody? No, not everyone is unmuted. So you've got the facility to unmute yourself if you want to ask a question. All right. So who was it that put their hand up?
I have a question, Claire
Yes.
Power.
Yeah,
You mentioned that Simon's email number was wrong.
Yep.
I've got Simon for Chichester.
That's the one I shared with you today.
Yes, that's the correct one. Okay, thank you.
However, because the packs, some of the teller pack sheets have been printed before we agreed on this alternative method of emailing the data to the data hub. In some of your packs, you might not have this email address, which is why it's important that you make a note of that, because it's probably the preferred way of getting the data to the office. So it's definitely Simon for chichester@gmail.com, and that was correct on the sheet that we collected earlier this morning.
And can I just confirm that that's the preferred method, is it, or is it the WhatsApp?
Either way is fine. But if you force a preference, Simon would probably say email.
Yeah.
But don't worry, if email doesn't work for you, then WhatsApp is perfectly acceptable.
Hello.
Okay.
Hi. This is Alistair Beckett. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm not a Lib Dem member, so I believe I have to sign an NDA.
No, that's not necessary for telling. If you're doing knocking up, it is necessary.
Okay.
Because as you've seen, we're not actually taking the name of the individual.
Right.
Okay. But thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to
Ansi. Hello, Ansi. Got a question?
Yeah, hello. In the CDC instructions, it says you are allowed to ask the voter's name.
Yeah, you are.
Okay. Well, we don't need it, and we'd rather you did it.
We don't. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying. We don't need it, and we certainly don't want to have to get NDAs around to everybody because we are asking.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Can I ask?
Is that Maureen?
Yes. Can I ask a quick? Go back to the Simon Scotland email address. You keep cutting out on me, I have to say. So I've been missing bits, and I'm still not clear about which is Simon's email address. Could that be put up on the teller's WhatsApp group?
Yes.
Yes, I can reiterate this. It was already sent to you, but I can resend it. I'm going to be
Thank
sending
you.
additional information tomorrow, and I will add that to the
Thank you.
I have a question.
Who's I?
Bill,
Dave,
it's Carl.
Carl.
Hi.
Carl, hello.
When you say that people can send a WhatsApp or an email, you are assuming that they have a mobile phone signal at the station they're operating from. And as you know, rural areas around Chichester will not have a good signal. So as a suggestion, it might be worth for tellers to visit the station the day before just to make sure their phone has mobile data. And if not, then maybe they could move around depending on who their operator is, because it will vary according to operators.
Okay, that's a good tip, Carol. Thank you. If anyone's got the time to do that, I think that's a good tip, but it's not essential. And if it's absolutely completely without internet, then it's okay to send the 2 or 3 photos, let's say, that you have at the end of your shift when you get into an area that does have reception. Thank you.
Also,
Hold on, Carolyn.
Yeah.
What's your question?
I'm knocking up, which is an odd expression. I'm knocking up and telling. Well, I volunteered for both. Will I be doing both? And will there be a point when I won't be telling and I'll be knocking off? And when do we find out what shifts we're on?
I actually wasn't aware of the fact that you volunteered for telling, so I'm going to get in
Oh, so
touch
I'm
with-
not telling, so I'm just knocking up.
I thought that you were doing knocking up all day. If you want to do
Okay,
setting some-
I can
think
do
you are-
I can do knocking up all day, whichever is
I
you'd
think it's
rather I
probably
do.
preferable.
Yeah.
In this
Okay, all right. So I don't have to do telling at all.
No.
Okay.
Have you enjoyed
Okay.
the
It was
session, though?
nice. It was nice listening to you anyway, guys.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
David Gaylord, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, it's just a quick question for Isabella, really. She sent round the rota for Swanfield, and there doesn't seem to be any more tellers after me. Has that been updated?
That was
Or you
initially sent when I created the group for you. It was still work in progress. Most of them are finalized now. Some of them
Okay.
are still have gaps, and this is going to be the full rota, which will also show you who is coming after whom,
Okay,
will be
that's
shared
fine.
with you tomorrow.
Lovely. Thank you. That's all I want to know, because I didn't
Okay.
want it just to go. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David. Maureen had another question.
I do. Last time or when I've done this before, some very nice conservative people have suggested we share our data, which is not a big problem. But I just wonder what the policy at the moment is with that, if that's the same as it's always been.
It's a very good question, Maureen. Thank you. And it is referred to in that 2-page document, Chichester Lib Dems guidance. But to talk about that specifically, in principle, as long as it's a reciprocal arrangement, we are happy that you exchange information. It could be perfectly possible that if there's a big batch of voters arrive at the polling station at the same time, that you do half and the Tory person does the other half, and then you exchange the information. If, however, it is very clear that they are not prepared to share the information that they have gleaned with you, then you should not share the information you have with them. Thank you for clarifying, Maureen.
Thank you.
Neil, Holly Williams has a question. Hello?
Yeah, sorry, trying to unmute there. These emails that you're talking about, I haven't yet received them, so I think I'll probably have to get on to Isabella.
They were not
later.
emails. They were sent by WhatsApp. You should have all been allocated.
No, that's well, okay. Then I'm not on the WhatsApp Data Hub group.
Okay, in that case, I'm gonna have to check that and make sure
lovely.
that the
Thank you.
information to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question, please?
Where is that coming from?
It's coming from me, Claire Hassel. Sorry, my picture's not up there.
Okay.
Yep, you got it. Just apropos, you were talking a bit earlier about asking people's names and not having signed the whatever the agreement is, an undisclosure agreement, whatever you have to sign.
Yes.
But typically, if somebody hasn't got their number, we do ask their name and their address. Is that still okay to do that?
No, our preference is you don't ask for the name. So the form only requires you to ask for the postcode and the number or in the street or the name of the house.
Okay.
And to indicate on the form whether it's a male or a female at that address.
Yep. Okay, fine.
If we're not asking for the name, we don't need an NDA for the people who are telling.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Please don't ask for the name.
Jill,
Right.
may I ask a question? May I ask a question?
Yes, is that Bernard?
It is.
Please go.
Yeah, I've been hearing reference to messages being sent out today on WhatsApp. I've heard things like we've all been sent the rotas, and we also have the information that has been sent to us on the group. I've received none of that at all.
Okay, so it looks like you're not on the WhatsApp group, but Isabella will add you straight away. The information has been sent out on the WhatsApp group, so as soon as you're added, then you'll be able to access it. Thank you for.
Okay.
And if there's anybody else who feels that they haven't received the information, please make me aware, and I'll make sure that you're added.
And do you therefore have my email address to do that?
No, I've got your phone number. WhatsApp is done by phone.
That's fine. You've got my phone number.
No, just. Can I just say something?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Can I just say something about the WhatsApp?
Meryl.
So I'm sorry I can't find the hand thing on my screen. I only joined the WhatsApp group yesterday.
Yes.
And you can't see the historic information on it. So anything that you sent out before, including the lists, I can't see. So could you send it all again?
I can send it all again.
Yes, I have the same problem. And
I think
say
it's a good point. I mean, if I was adding new people today when they were being identified as new tellers, I have been resending the information, but it's possible that few of you have slipped through. So when I'm going to be sending the rotas, confirming Simon's email address, I will also send this information again to all of you. So apologize to those who will receive it again, but this is the best way of dealing with this and making sure that everybody receives it.
Thank you. Who else has got a question?
We haven't got a brochure.
I'd quite like to ask them.
Claire? No?
Alan.
I'm Alan.
Alan, hello.
I don't seem to be on the list. Maybe I'm just sort of linked with Claire, or but I think I'm on the timetable.
Okay.
But I seem to receive any communications at all.
Okay, we'll add you. Any other questions? Ray and Ian.
Could I ask a quick question?
No, I want. Sorry, can I cue Ray and Ian, please?
All right.
Hi there. We've got all the documentation, but we haven't got a list of tellers at Fishbourne.
No, this is what is going to be sent to you tomorrow because lists were still being finalized. In fact, they are still finalized. We're still trying to fill out the gaps, which is why I didn't want to keep sending this in drips and drops. You should receive that tomorrow, so you will know who is coming, who should be there before you, or who's coming after you.
Okay, sorry, somebody else, a lady wanted to ask a question.
Yes, hi, it's Wendy here. Sorry, just quickly. I said I'd help after my shift telling to be later on in the day a knocker-upper. Do I contact or get information from Jane on that?
Jane, are you happy with that?
Yeah, you do. I'm coming round to see you on Wednesday night.
So that'll
Yeah,
okay, Jane. I thought that was the time it would be. I just wanted to check. Yes, okay. Thank you.
Super. Anyone else got a question?
Will you be sharing this presentation, Jill? I see it's been recorded.
Yes, so Isabella's going to share a link to the recording so that if you want to watch it back to get clarification, because I don't know, maybe you weren't paying full attention at the time.
No, I'm just in an airport. I'm in an airport, so I some of the stuff I missed.
Okay. Good. Any other questions?
Yeah.
What happens if?
So you don't look like a Kevin.
No, I'm not. You see, it's on his computer. I'm Belinda. So
hello, Belinda.
Hi. There could possibly be 4 or 5 tellers at the polling station, given the amount of different parties. So would that be acceptable for the voter to speak to all of them? How would you approach?
So I think that they're highly unlikely to be 5.
Okay.
Okay, the Greens might put somebody up in Chichester South, but I doubt anywhere else.
Yeah.
Reform will definitely be at Chelsea and probably at Bersted, but not all of the polling stations there.
Right.
And all of Labour's activists are in Bognor. So I doubt very much there'll be anybody out for Labour. And as we know, the Tories are pretty thin on the ground these days. So, however, worst case scenario, poor voter approaches polling station and 5 tellers descend on them. I think it very much depends on the nature of the contract that you've agreed with the other tellers. It's like, okay, we'll have one person ask and then we'll pass the information on to each other. Or the voter may actually make a beeline for the party that they intend to vote with anyway. So it's impossible to give you a blanket response, but I just use your judgment, and come to an arrangement with the other tellers if necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem.
There'll be some questions in the chat, and there was one I wanted to. Can you see a chat?
Hold on a minute. Isabella just wants to check the chat.
So some questions coming up.
There we go. Okay. Tories love to tell us what they can't do. Yes, thank you, Jane. So one of the reasons why we wanted to be very clear with you as to what it is you're allowed to do and the nature of the conversation, dialogue rather than chit chat that you're able to have is that our experience is that some particular Tories are very opinionated about what we are and we are not allowed to do. And they may even complain about us to the returning officer. And that's a tactic which they do use. And we saw them using it last elections and also the last general election. Please don't be thrown by that. If another teller tries to tell you what you are and aren't allowed to do, be polite, but ignore. In the same way as if you see them doing something that you think they are not supposed to be doing, you contact Jane Scotland to discuss whether or not it's something that Jane wants to escalate. Is that clear? Meryl asks, when are you going to confirm timing and location?
That's going to be tomorrow.
That is coming from Isabella tomorrow. Knocking up training from Claire. Do you need training for that? Yes, you do, but it doesn't take very long, and your ward leader will do that with you, probably the evening before. So on the evening of July the 3rd, what we're asking all the ward leaders to do is to meet with the knocker-uppers and run through to make sure that they have the tech on their phone, they have the script straight in their head, and they have the understanding of how they submit the data that they collect. So that's all I'm going to say about knocking up at this point, because this is predominantly targeted at tellers.
Could I ask a question of Isabella? Sorry, Chris here. You haven't told us yet how the teller packs are going to be made available.
No, I'm going to be making arrangements with the first teller of the day, where you can either collect them or who is going to deliver it to you. So that's also going to be happening tomorrow. And then similarly with the last teller of the day of where the pack needs to be returned. Jill mentioned the ward leaders. So again, similar arrangements going to be made for the last person finishing the polling session. And yes, ideally they will arrange for you to collect them, but if you're unable to, we will make arrangements to have them delivered.
Yeah, and please don't forget that if you're not sure what's happening, just call Jane Scotland at any time, within reason. Okay, Jane can't go and get you coffee, but if you've got a query, you're not quite sure what's happening next, or where the person is relieving you has got to, then that's what Jane's there for. If you have any concerns that are oriented around the returning officer or the rules of what you can do, then Jane is the one to call.
Okay, if you've got something, can I just say something about that? If you've got something non-urgent, you can put it on the WhatsApp group because I'll be monitoring that. If it's urgent, like something you're concerned about, call me, because the problem is there'll be so many WhatsApps flying around because I'm looking after the knockers uppers as well. So if you're not sure about something, just phone me and I'll pick up straight away.
Okay. Somebody's asked, can we have a copy of the PowerPoint on WhatsApp?
I would suggest not.
It's a very big file.
but you can watch the recording and it's going to show you exactly what you have just seen. So you can just, fast forward or rewind in the way you want to, because I'll be sending you already so much information. I really don't think that this is the best thing to send by WhatsApp, and I don't have email addresses for everyone.
Yeah. Okay. The file would be too big of an email as well. Yeah. So, what time is the count expected to finish? Well, it kind of depends on whether we need a recount. We think maybe 2 a.m., maybe between 2 and 3 a.m. If there's no recount, but it could go on much longer than that, and we've really no idea how long that piece of string is in that event. Can we attend the final count? Is highly restricted. Highly restricted. We have 10 people allowed to attend the count. So sorry, David, no. So does anybody have, those are the ones that are on the chat. Does anybody have any other questions?
What happens if you ask a voter for their poll card and they give you a whole load of verbal abuse?
Then I think that's a very clear indication that they don't want to give you the information. Just
Probably not Lib Dem.
say, thank you very much. That's the end of the conversation. You do not have a right to that information.
Okay, so just leave them to walk off.
Yes, please do. Please don't give verbal abuse back. Just say thank you.
Thank you very much and have a nice day.
Exactly. Any other questions? We're running out of time.
Yeah.
Jill, may I just add, from my point of view, everything relies upon Isabella sending me the necessary information, because at the present time I have 0 and I may very well be the first teller.
Then you will receive all the information tomorrow and we'll make sure that happens.
So
Thank you.
at the beginning, we gave Jane's phone number. Did you write that down, Bernard?
Yep, I've got the number, yeah.
So Jane is the fallback if you don't get what you need from Isabella. All right. But please wait. I would say until at least midday tomorrow. Isabella has very kindly taken the entire week off work in order to devote it to the campaign. So she was very busy last week, and I've absolutely no doubt you'll get everything that you need tomorrow morning.
That's brilliant. Many thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Going. Okay, somebody says thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure, there's no one got a hand up on the second. Super. Thank you so much, everybody. Again, we could not do this without you. You are going to play a really important role on polling day, and it works as an absolute complement with the Knocking Up team. And you are going to make life so much more straightforward and easy for that Knocking Up team. And at the end of the day, it's about getting as many people who've already told us that they intend to vote for Jess actually to the polling station. And what you've just helped us to do, you will be helping us to do, is making sure that we're not wasting time knocking on doors of voters who have already voted, so that we can devote the time to the people who haven't yet voted and encouraging them to get down to the polling station and cast their vote for Jess. Because it's all about yes to Jess.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so please put July the 19th in your diary. Hopefully that is a celebration, but at the very least it will be a thank you.
Thank you.
I personally say thank you to everybody giving up their time to do this and to help Jess get across the line. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Fingers
Thank you
crossed.
for everything you'll do.
Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.